You never take accountability for anything. You ever heard that said to you? Have you ever said, you don't take accountability? Like, none of this is accountability. What are we actually saying? Today, in Leaning In with Ann, I'm going to talk about shame, blame, and how they are the opposite of accountability and awareness. So if you've got anybody who has cut you off and has said, you don't take accountability, and like, I don't understand, I've just told you what I understand that I did wrong, and you're totally bewildered by their cutting you off, stick around. If you are one who's had to cut somebody off because they won't take any accountability, this may help you. Stick around. I'm Ann Ferguson, and this is a walk and talk that I do on weekday mornings at this little park. I go around in circles. I walk 6 to 8 miles, and I just bring you along because it's much more fun this way. I'm an author. I am a course creator. I am a public speaker. I am a workshop facilitator. I am a personal mentor, and I am a Gen Xer who is a recovering second-generation narcissist. It's possible, guys. It's possible. The first thing that we got to do to recover from narcissism, if you are second generation, what that means is you have been in relationship with someone who had really poor communication styles and made it all about them. And so you learned that that's how to communicate. So the difference between somebody who is actually narcissistic and someone who isn't is that people who are not actually narcissistic, while they may have the same communication styles, they're willing to look in. They're willing to go, how is this playing out for me? And how am I impacting other people? They have introspection, whereas a pure narcissist, somebody who's got narcissistic personality disorder, they do not look in. So when I realized how much I was putting on to my kids instead of me taking accountability, I actually took like 3 or 4 are you a narcissist tests, and one of them was so funny because it said, just because you're taking this test says you're not. I love that so much. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is a hot topic for a lot of families right now. Gen Xers, my generation, there's a certain way that we were taught to communicate our sorrow, our guilt, our shame, and repentance. And we were taught how to let go and forgive and just push away and give the benefit of the doubt and just move on and you know, all of that. And that isn't working. It doesn't work with our kids. It actually doesn't work with our relationships, like our marriages and other business relationships. It's actually not working, guys. Straight up, we were taught wrong. But there's hope. If you are a second generation narcissist, and or if you are a chain breaker, stick around and listen up. So the first thing that I want to do is the way to break out of narcissism. This is kind of an interesting thing, is to actually make it about you. What? But not make it about you with anybody else. The way to change second generation narcissism is to make it about you inside you. So the way we're going to do that is we are going to dive into an emotion, and you're just going to go into you and your experiences and your memories. You're going to see if you can grab onto it and give yourself permission that you had that emotion. So I would love for you to, let's do blamed. There's a delicious one. When is a time you felt blamed? Now, you can say, well, I feel blamed when so-and-so does this or when this happens. That is not what I'm talking about. That's an outward thing. I'm talking about going in and finding a memory. You don't have to dive down the rabbit hole and experience this deeply, but connecting into a time when you felt blamed and just be aware of what that feels like in your body. Man, that's road to recovery right there. So, blamed. A lot of times why we don't want to look at blame is we either have anger on the back end of that or shame. So just go in, just for a second, just touch it. when is a time you felt blamed? I had a situation where somebody blamed me for not keeping them safe. And when that was spoken to me, I didn't even know what they were talking about. I just felt the blame and the shame of it. That's what I felt. So, was it wrong for me to feel blamed when somebody spoke that, even if I did everything I could in my understanding, light, and knowledge to keep this person safe? Is it okay that I felt blamed by that? Absolutely. My camera's doing weird things. Totally okay to feel blamed. Totally okay to feel shame. Like I felt completely ashamed of myself and kind of panicked, honestly, because I didn't understand. So there was panic in that. Is that okay that I felt the panic? Yeah, totally okay. Totally okay. Did I say, I can't believe you said that because I did blah, 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 blah? That is where accountability isn't there, and you're just reacting out of your shame. It's really fascinating. But I was feeling defensive in that moment. Is it okay to feel defensive when you feel attacked? Yes. It is 100% okay to feel defensive when you're feeling attacked. Yes. And it's not the other person's responsibility to do anything about it. That's the craziness about this. So we are going to talk about all of that. Hopefully you've been able to find a moment of blame so you can connect in. Whew. So, I am a second-generation narcissist in recovery. The communication styles of both my dad and my ex-husband were typical of the time period and typical of culture. There was a little bit extra stuff that went on that made it so that they weren't introspective and could not accept accountability. They didn't know what that was. It was very, very, very vulnerable and very threatening to be accountable. And I will explain why in a second. But I had communication styles, and still do at times, that were very narcissistic. None of us likes to admit that we've got narcissistic tendencies. And the big bully, you'll hear me talk about him all the time. There is a God, there is one, and there is one bully. Man, does he love to mess with us. Oh, he tells us that accountability almost equals damnation if you're a Gen Xer. So, let's go with this situation where I have somebody telling me, crying actually, that I had not kept them safe. I immediately start spinning. And I want to run away from the conversation. Why? Because if I accept that, then that means I'm a bad person. Because you're supposed to keep those you love safe. Like, that's a given, right? And the question, why didn't you keep me safe? I didn't have enough emotional vocabulary or emotional maturity to pause and say, wow. So first of all, you felt really unsafe. And you wanted me to keep you safe. I'm going to hear that. I'm just going to hear it. That's different than accepting the blame. See, when we accept the blame, we actually shut down and we feel attacked. And there's nothing that can happen within accountability when you're defensive. Oh, it's so hard to be stripped, you guys. Whew. So taking the curiosity into it for yourself. Curiosity, by the way, you'll hear me say this as well. Curiosity kills judgment. When you are, I'm such a bad person, you are in a shame response and you are in judgment of yourself. And why you can say, wow, I did not keep this person safe in a way that they felt safe. Wow. I don't have to take the blame on it. Does that make sense? Okay. So here's a big part of this, a big piece of this. So many of us have been taught. I don't think this is just my generation, because I taught the next generation, and you may be teaching your children, depending on your age, that to feel really bad about what you've done wrong equals repentance. If you have done something wrong, like you did not keep me safe, then the appropriate response, as I was taught, was to feel ashamed and to feel really, really, really bad. And if I feel bad enough about myself, then you'll know that I understand and will try to do better to love you, without knowing what they're talking about, how this behavior even contributed to them not being safe, and have no clue what to do moving forward. So the first thing to know is that confession of what you did wrong. I now see that I did this and this and this, and it didn't keep you safe, all the while feeling shame. Confession is not repentance. Shame is not repentance. And so with that, I'm going to tell you all the reasons why I suck and why I hurt you, and how I understand that I was awful and you probably deserve so much better than what I gave you, and I can see that, and I'm humbled and I'm beaten up and I've got the sledgehammer of doom, and I want you to see how sorry I am. There's the apology. I'm so sorry. And then what you're supposed to do on the back end is just let it go. Like, you're supposed to forgive me because I admitted that I was wrong. Okay. I have a daughter who was courageous enough to communicate to me what her experience with that kind of thing was. She communicated in text. It took me immediately, when I read it, I felt the shame. Immediately, I felt the guilt. I felt confused. I felt worthless as a mom. I felt unable to even know what to do. You know, all of those feelings. And then I let it be. And then I read it again. And then I read it again. And I read it again until something started to show up. So I don't remember actually doing this. And one of the things that happens is that when we don't remember, we can say, oh, well, that never happened because I didn't remember. There are things that I remember about my childhood that my siblings don't remember. And there's stories that they bring up that I don't remember, but it was their experience, and I happen to be in the room. So it's quite possible that if somebody is telling you something that is their experience, and they're really in a place where they're trying to communicate with you, and you don't remember, don't dismiss it, guys. Don't dismiss it, because that's not helpful. So what happened was, as a young mom with 4 little kids, not enough money, kind of on survival mode most of my experience without having intimate partnership support, I was kind of on my own and tired. I was so tired. And when you get that tired and kids do things that make you expend more energy and time and love than you have capacity because you are on freaking empty, what happened to me is that I explode. Blah! A psycho wench comes out, right? And she is yelling and she is screaming and she says, how could you do this? Why were you doing that? You know better. That shouldn't have been, blah, 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 blah. I was dumping all the shame onto them because they were wrong, right? Well, the next day, maybe, as the story goes, I guess I did this multiple times. I would then come back and go, I am so sorry I lost my temper. I am so sorry that I said those things. I was so tired. I'm so sorry. You probably I'm not a very good mom. I know that. I'm doing my best. I'm trying. It might have been better if you'd gone to a different mom who was better. I just need you to know I'm so sorry. So I would say you should have gone to another mom. I'm so bad. So, as a 7-year-old, immediately I flipped it, and instead of saying sorry in a way that my daughter felt heard, understood, that I understood what I had done, I flipped it into I feel so bad. And she says, and all I was left with, Mom, was taking care of your shame. I didn't want you to feel bad. You were feeling so bad about yourself and so yuck. And she says, but honestly, you never actually took accountability for what actually happened. Oh my gosh, in this text message that I had to read multiple times to see it, I finally saw it. I finally saw what her experience was due to my behavior, and it really didn't matter why I was up all night. That doesn't change the fact that there was a wound inflicted. And she felt bad. She felt worried. She didn't ever want to make me feel that again. So she started beating herself up. I saw a TikTok that said that when you criticize children, they don't stop loving you. They stop loving themselves. Oh my gosh, yes. I'm going to say it again. When you criticize children, point out all the reasons why they were wrong, flawed, why they should have known better, done it another way. First of all, you're not actually being loving. But they don't stop loving you for being mean. They stop loving themselves for being flawed. So accountability in this situation, now that I've seen it, would look like I've just yelled and screamed, and I go, oh man, that was awful, and come back and say, hey, I just want you to know that I am very sorry for what just happened. All of my yelling and screaming and blaming, you didn't mean to do this and you didn't mean to do that. And here's the accountability part. What emotional impact did you have on somebody else? I want you to say that again. The accountability piece, there's two parts. One is what emotional impact did you have on somebody else? So that must have been really scary when Mom starts yelling and screaming. Or when I was yelling and screaming, if they have enough emotional intelligence, what were you feeling? And the accountability is hearing the other person's emotional experience. So that must have been really, really scary for you when Mommy yelled and screamed like that and kind of freaked out, right? So moving forward, what I'm going to do is, if I'm really, really tired, I'm going to say I'm super, super tired and I need to take a rest or a timeout and I need to be okay because you're not responsible for how I feel, right? You did a thing and I felt really frustrated, but you didn't make me frustrated, honey. So the second part of accountability is, and what do I need to do to move forward? I need to do, not you need to do. I could have said, okay, this is the old school, so don't you ever get into that closet again, because I never want us to go through this. That is the blame that we think is communicating what we need. Accountability is actually making it all about you, but not them being required to take care of you. So let's go to a different situation. I heard this recently, and I remember experiencing this. I did the Feelings Jar. This was several years ago. I did the Feelings Jar with 9, 10, 11-year-old boys. They loved it. They wanted to do it every single week. It's a homeschool group that I was talking to. And I pulled an emotion, and it was ignored. And I said, when is the last time you were ignored? And this one little guy kind of sinks down and says, last night. And I go, oh, really? Last night? What happened last night? What memory do you have? And he goes, I asked my dad to play, but he was just playing his video games all night and didn't want me to bother him. And I said, anybody else in the room ever feel ignored? And so everybody raised their hands, so he wasn't bad or wrong for feeling ignored. That is the emotion he felt when Dad dismissed him, right? He could have felt angry. He could have felt patient. There's a lot of different feelings that you can feel. So what you do feel, while impacted by behavior, is not necessarily caused by behavior, just so you know. So let's fast forward that. Later on down the road, this is a different situation and person. I heard of this very courageous son, different person, different dad, who actually tried to communicate what that felt like. So their relationship is strained, and Dad was on the computer a lot, on the cell phone a lot, or on the iPad all the time. And so whenever there was interaction, this kid was bothering Dad, right? Well, son tries to say, the reason why I don't feel close to you is because you were on the phone and you were on the iPad and you dismissed us and didn't have a relationship with us growing up. And so it's hard for me to show you love when I didn't feel loved. How communicative is that? He wasn't blaming. He was saying, I had this experience of being ignored and I didn't feel loved, and I'm not sure how to do love because I didn't feel like that was loving. The dad took it and ran into guilt and shame. Well, I can't change the past. I've told you I'm so sorry that I screwed up as a dad and I wasn't very good to you. And, I see it and, I can't do anything about it. It's time to move on. Did that kid get any kind of validation at all? No, because there was no check-in with the dad. Wait a minute. It's true. I was on my phone. I was on my computer. I was on my iPad. And there's a reason for it. But when I speak my reason to somebody else, maybe he could have said, well, that was the time of, a lot of that time we had no money and I was scrambling to put food on the table and to make sure that you had clothes. Communicating that stress, does that validate the kid who said, Dad, I felt ignored and I don't know how to feel loved? It doesn't. Now you can do that to yourself. Okay, wait a minute, what was going on? Yeah, I was completely distracted. I was emotionally abandoning the family. I remember that feeling of not wanting him around. What did that do? Wow. I can totally see why me being on the computer like that caused you, if you will, to just feel ignored and unloved by me. Wow. You know what? That sucks for a kid. The fact that that was your experience and we can't get that back. I am so sorry that what I did created that. Now, saying sorry without shame is actual accountability. I'm so sorry that this happened. I hear you and I see. So, the repair is this. Not, I'm going to do things and I want you to do it my way so that we can have a relationship back. The kid said, I don't want to be around you. You dismissed me. And I don't know what relationship even looks like. And then Dad could say, well, it looks like this. You need to call me. You need to go with me to this thing. You need to, where Dad may be a business meeting. He's talking to everybody else and the kid's just standing there. And Dad thinks because he invited him that there's connection. Doesn't repair, does it? Why? Because there wasn't awareness of actual experience. The other thing is to let the person who is asking you to be accountable for what they need next. So remember this phrase. After the apology, I can see that you would feel and that you felt this because of this, this, and that. I think I would feel the same way. So acknowledging and validating, I think I would feel the same way if that had been my experience. What I would love is to repair this, but let's get honest. When you're in accountability, sometimes you go, and I have no idea what you need. So that's really hard for Gen Xers because we were told not to question and just do. And so when we have a younger generation, we're just going to do and we don't want you to question. Do this and it'll be right. Do that and it'll be right. And we never check in and honor the other person. So an honoring statement would be, do you have any requests of me right now that would feel very supportive of you? So the kid may say, I just need to think about this. I'm just glad you heard me. That is the first repair of the relationship, the I hear you moment. Not I hear your blame. Not just I hear your pain. But I hear what you experienced emotionally. I get that. And I accept it as real. There are some people that I hear, they're saying, well, this generation, man, they're just feeling all this stuff. They don't have any grit. They don't have any tenacity. You know, they just want everything handed to them. I disagree. I believe that the generation after me, my children's generation, 30s and down, they are beings of light. They may not always act like it, but they are beings of light, and they don't do shame as a motivator like we did. I never wanted to disappoint. I didn't want to. Why? Because if I disappointed someone, then I would feel shame, and I hate the feeling of shame. So I would do everything so I didn't shame. None of that is love. All of that is fear. And our kids, they don't want to do that. They want to actually act in ways that are loving to themselves. They want to feel love, and they want to feel loved. They want to feel emotionally safe. They want to feel free to explore and be who they are. They want to feel validated and respected. None of that is wrong. Not an ounce of it. Here's the problem for my Gen X friends and anybody who was raised by them who's kind of stuck in this. How we were raised wasn't okay. Not our parents' fault. That's how they were raised. But there's a shift that happened when the internet happened. We had growth. People started talking. Those of you who are the chain breakers, woohoo! Like my daughters. The ones who went, I don't feel good about this, and I'm actually going to kind of separate myself in relationship because it doesn't feel good, and them letting me take absolute responsibility about whether or not I was going to grow into emotionally mature being so that I can have a relationship. Because they can't grow me into emotional maturity. They can't communicate what they experience. So those chain breakers out there, this is what we need, because we have no clue that we're doing it wrong. We were taught to feel ashamed, to admit our wrongs, to explain why, so that you can maybe get some grace and mercy going, and to ask you to just move on. That was the communication pattern. That's what we learned. So when that happens, oh, I just ruined your life. Mom, that is an over-exaggeration, and I need you to stick with what I've just told you about this situation. Chain breakers. It may not go well, but enough times we're going to finally get it. Mom, you did not ruin my life, and this hurt me. And this situation had impact. Right? The why we bring that up is because without awareness, you will continue to do the exact same thing. So my responsibility is to kindly bring awareness to you. And your responsibility is to consider my point of view. if I can consider your point of view and your feelings about that without making myself wrong and without making myself responsible, we can have a relationship. I need to have the emotional safety to say, oh, Mom, that was so great, high five. And I need to be able to say, Mom, what you just said was really invalidating. So if you are a chain breaker, it sucks because you're kind of having to parent the parent. I know, psychologically, that is a really, really big no-no and really awful. The reality is our parents aren't going to teach us this. They're too old or gone. And so for you to be really clear in your communication, instead of blocking completely and putting those barriers up and saying, I can't have a relationship, for you to be able to communicate what your experiences is when we say certain things would be very helpful. Parents, adults, the ones, second generation narcissists, your responsibility is to believe them. That is what they experienced. Hear it. That is what they felt. There's nothing wrong with it. Just like there's nothing wrong with you feeling defensive when you feel attacked. There's nothing wrong with feeling ignored when somebody has pushed them away. There's nothing wrong with feeling unsafe when I required a higher level of thinking, understanding, and behaving than the developmental stage of my child and said, go for it. Or I didn't say, no, you don't. You do not do that to my child. If I didn't stand up because I didn't want to make them feel bad, what was happening is I was actually making my child unsafe. I don't want to make you feel bad because you're going to tell me that you felt bad, and then I'm going to be wrong and I'm going to be ashamed. So I'm just going to do my thing. I'm going to let you do your thing. I'm going to nurse the wounds on the back end. But all of that, is it okay for a child to not feel safe? And to, as adults, saying, you didn't keep me safe. Absolutely. It's okay that they felt unsafe. So for you here, I would like to invite you into the understanding and training of emotional awareness of your own stuff and grace for yourself so that you can have grace for somebody else. Not excuse for yourself and wanting excuse from somebody else. That's different than grace. It's different than love. I invite you to come into the Igniting Your Belief class because it teaches emotional autonomy and communication so that we can heal and repair these relationships that we've done our absolute 100% best with the light and knowledge we had at the time. Yes, you did your absolute best. And if those relationships are wonky, go into curiosity. I wonder what more. We'll say, I don't know what more I could do. That's dismissive, avoidant. I don't know what more I could have done. Instead of going, I wonder, is there a skill set that I missed? Is there something that my kids have due to the world that exists now that in my very secluded world with my church family, my extended family, my school, that was very insulated? Is there something that in that system I didn't understand? What else can I learn? If that is you, Igniting Your Belief is a 12-week course that helps you connect to you safely and helps you not be pissed at everybody else when you connect to you. I see a lot of people that connect to themselves and they're like, and you were the bad guy and you were the oppressor. How about we find out who you are and find grace for other people in the meantime, like love. Igniting Your Belief can do that. It's a 12-week course. It is not self-guided. There's a reason why. We're talking about real situations, real people, real emotions. And you need someone who has been through this process so that they can mentor you when you get a hang-up. So you meet once weekly. There's no homework and or reading. You just show up to class. There's a principle taught and a skill to use and to practice for the week. And these skills and tools are designed to be in your life as you live. So it's not taking away from your kids, your spouse, your businesses, your church responsibilities or anything else. It doesn't take things away. It helps you go, oh my gosh, if I use this, that makes that easier. So all you have to do is show up. Then on Marco Polo, we all as a group talk back and forth about the skill or the tool, and you start to find out that you are not the only one who has experienced this. And you get to discover when somebody makes a breakthrough, you can go, oh my gosh, that's what I need to do next. So there's a group and peer experience of community that you get. And when you get really hung up and you're like, I just don't even know what to do, there's a personal mentor. It's not the same as therapy where you have an appointment once a week and then ding, the time's up, and then you get to go figure things out for the rest of the week. If you're having a hang up and going, I just can't get this, or this big thing happened and I'm spinning out of control and I don't know what to do, you get to get on Marco Polo and go, hey, this is what happened. And either me or the mentor that you're working with gets to get on and say, hey, so you could do this, this, and this, consider that. Or I'm going to get on the phone. Let's have a chat. Let's talk about this. We can work it through. And we can get you back on track with being safe in your own body, with your own emotions, with your own thoughts. Giving grace so that you can give grace to others, so that you can start to really create your life and sail. That is what Igniting Your Belief is all about. I hope this was very helpful. Please share it if it was. Please shoot me questions and yeah, buts, and I don't know about, but what do you do if? And I will address that on my walk and talk. Thanks for being here. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. I will see you tomorrow.